There's a short Zen proverb that carries enough weight to stir the deepest part of the soul. Let go or be dragged. It sounds simple, but who among us hasn't been dragged through our own mind by old memories, harsh words, or past decisions? How many nights have you lain awake over something you couldn't change? How many times have you gripped tightly to the hope that holding on would bring peace, only to find yourself even more exhausted? In Zen, we learn a gentle but profound truth of what we think we control is only an illusion. The tighter we cling, the more we lose. Only when we loosen our grip do we realize some things will remain in our hands without needing to be held so tightly. Today, let's step into the path of Zen, where acceptance, letting go, and detachment from outcomes do not make us cold, but instead allow us to live more fully, more freely. And it begins with a simple question. What am I really holding on to? Resistance is the root of suffering. Many people believe hardship, loss, or life's challenges are what make them suffer. But if you look closely, you'll see the heavier burden is often your inner resistance. It's not the situation itself that causes pain. It's the mind's refusal to accept it, that constant voice saying, "This shouldn't be happening. It should be different." The moment you fight reality, you build another wall. And that wall is what keeps peace from reaching you. The Buddha once taught, "It is not what others do or don't do that makes you suffer. It's what your own mind clings to that brings pain." When you resist, it's like swimming against a strong current. The harder you push, the more exhausted you become. But when you let go, when you allow yourself to float, you feel the water holding you up. Reality is not your enemy. It only feels heavy when you refuse to face it. Think about the last time something didn't go your way. A sudden criticism, a failed plan, or a loved one acting in a way you didn't expect. Your first reaction may have been heat rising in your chest, frustration, or a heavy sigh. But look deeper. Real suffering began the moment you thought, "No, I don't want this to happen." Reality was just a passing wave. Resistance turned it into a storm. Zen doesn't teach you to love everything that happens. It teaches you to see it as it is. Like standing by a river, watching the current rush by. There's debris, fallen leaves, and glimmers of sunlight on the water. You don't jump in to pull out every piece of debris, nor do you try to dam the flow. You stand, you breathe, you watch. Your mind begins to open the moment you stop trying to change everything right away. And strangely, when the urge to control fades, you see more clearly what action, if any, needs to be taken. Many fear that acceptance will make them weak or allow others to take advantage. But in the Buddhist sense, acceptance is not defeat. It's courage. Courage to see reality as it is without being swept away by emotion. When you no longer resist, you stop wasting energy on denial, and you can use that energy to act more wisely from a steady heart. Imagine holding a rope tied to a running horse. The tighter you pull, the more your hands burn and bleed. The rope is your resistance. The horse is the situation. It will keep running whether you like it or not. Only when you let go does the pain stop. Letting go doesn't mean letting the horse run wild. It means stepping out of a tug of war you can't win. Resistance often grows from fear. Fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of not being in control. Yet, here's the paradox. Resistance makes those fears more real because it traps you in constant anxiety. When you relax your grip, fear loses its power. You begin to see that no matter what happens, you can still stand. I've met many people who, after great upheavals, losing a job, ending a relationship, facing illness, have told me, "When I stopped fighting reality, I felt lighter." It's a quiet but profound shift. They stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "This is here. How will I move forward from here?" That question opens a new path, leading them out of the dark. If today you find yourself in a situation that's weighing you down, try pausing for a moment. Take a deep breath in, let it out slowly, and say to yourself, "This is what's here right now. I don't have to like it, but I allow it to exist." In that instant, you take a step away from resistance. You're no longer tangled in should have and what if. You stand here now, facing the truth, and you realize you're still okay. Because in the end, what wears you out is not the rain itself. It's shouting at the sky to stop raining. When you stop shouting, you can hear the sound of the rain. And maybe, just maybe, in that sound, you'll find the peace you've been searching for all along. Imagine a quiet morning with a gentle rain. Not a heavy downpour, not a light drizzle, but the kind of rain that soaks your hair, dampens your clothes, and lingers just enough to be felt. Along a narrow dirt path, a Zen master walks slowly. No umbrella in his hand, no hat on his head, no movement to shield himself or hurry toward shelter. He simply walks each step steady, his breath moving in rhythm with the rain, eyes looking ahead without strain. At first glance, you might wonder, why not cover himself? Why not find a dry place? But for someone who lives fully in mindfulness, the rain is no longer an enemy to resist. It is simply part of the present moment. The master makes no attempt to change the weather, no complaint about the inconvenience. He simply receives it exactly as it is. In our own lives, the rain isn't always literal. It can be an unexpected bad news, a harsh critique, or a situation that goes against our wishes. Our first instinct is often to shield ourselves, sometimes with anger, sometimes by running away. But the umbrellas we raise in our minds rarely protect us. More often, they just make our arms tired, keeping us busy, resisting, instead of letting ourselves experience the moment fully. The Buddha taught, "In this world, suffering cannot be avoided, but we can choose how to face it." The Zen master, walking in the rain, is a living image of that choice. It's not that he enjoys being wet. He simply knows that resistance only weighs the heart down. The rain will stop when it's time, just as every circumstance in life changes when the conditions are right. Think back to a time when you rushed to shield yourself in life. Maybe you argued fiercely to prove you were right, only to find the victory brought no peace. Or maybe you avoided an uncomfortable feeling, only to have it cling to you more tightly. It's like trying to outrun a rain cloud. You only end up more exhausted. Walking in the rain without covering up doesn't mean being passive or giving up. It's an intentional act, being fully present, directly in touch with what is happening. When you walk through the rain of your own life with this mindset, you start to notice something remarkable. The rain is no longer an obstacle, but part of the path. There's an old Zen story. A student once asked his master teacher, "What should I do when it rains?" His master smiled and said, "Let yourself get wet." It sounds simple, but it's a complete teaching. When you allow yourself to get wet, you stop pouring energy into fighting what cannot be changed. Instead, you open an inner space where peace isn't dependent on sunshine or rain. Applied to everyday life, the image of the Zen master walking in the rain reminds us that every situation, even the unpleasant ones, can be an opportunity to practice mindfulness. When criticism comes, try standing still and listening without rushing to defend yourself. When a plan falls apart, take a deep breath and observe your feelings before looking for someone to blame. In that moment, you are walking in the rain, learning how to be wet without losing your calm. And here's the interesting thing. Once you accept being wet, the inner storm often passes more quickly. Resistance is like a strong wind that drives the rain into your face. When the wind dies down, when the mind stops swirling, the rain becomes gentle, even refreshing. You might ask, does that mean I should just let everything happen and do nothing? No. Letting go in Zen is not an action. It's action that comes from a place unbound by fear or anger. The master can still reach for a raincoat if he needs to, but he won't let the absence of one be a reason to lose his presence or his peace. So, next time rain falls in your life, a difficult email, a heated argument, a day when plans collapse, try slowing down. Instead of rushing to open your umbrella of reactions, take a few bare steps in that rain. Feel it, breathe with it, and you may find that you can walk through without being swept away. And perhaps, like the Zen master on the wet dirt road, you'll discover that the rain is just rain. It's not an enemy, nor is it an impossible challenge. It's simply part of the journey, and you, the one walking, are the true keeper of your own peace. Many people, when they hear the words, "let go," immediately think of giving up, shirking responsibility, or becoming indifferent to life. But in the spirit of Buddhist teaching, letting go is nothing like that. It's not about surrendering in defeat, being lazy, or turning your back on what's happening. Letting go is something very different. It's an inner freedom, the release from being tied to a specific outcome, the freedom from letting expectations drag you down a tiring road. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is tanha, craving attachment and clinging. When we insist that life must unfold exactly as we wish and fear when it doesn't, we bind ourselves with the rope of desire. Letting go is realizing that this rope exists only in our own hands and that we can simply open our fingers. This doesn't mean you stop caring or acting. On the contrary, you still nurture work and love, but you do so with an open heart, without conditions for your happiness. For example, you can love someone deeply, but not make your happiness depend on them loving you back in a specific way. You care for the relationship, but if it changes one day, you won't collapse because you understand that your happiness is not locked in someone else's hands. Imagine planting a seed. You choose good soil, water it, and give it the best chance to grow. But you cannot force it to sprout on your chosen day or bloom in the exact color you prefer. You do your part and trust the process. That is letting go. Doing your best without gripping the result too tightly. Many fear that if they let go of expectations, they'll lose motivation. But in truth, letting go frees your energy for wiser use. Instead of spending hours worrying about what you can't control, you focus on what you can do now. This often leads to better results because your mind is no longer clouded by fear and disappointment. The Buddha once told a story about a man crossing a river. He rows with all his strength to reach the other side, but once ashore, he doesn't carry the boat on his back as he continues his journey. If he clung to it, he would tire quickly and go nowhere. The boat represents the means, the expectations, or the conditions we need at one stage of life. They serve their purpose, but when it's time, we must set them down. Not because they are useless, but because it's time to travel lighter. Letting go of attachment doesn't make you cold. In fact, it purifies your love and care because they are no longer mixed with fear or ownership. You can love work and dream, but not let those things define your worth or happiness. This allows you to love more deeply, work more wholeheartedly, and live more fully without the heavy fear of losing. Ask yourself, what are you holding on to so tightly that your hands are tired, yet you still won't release? Maybe it's a relationship that no longer nourishes you. Maybe it's an image of yourself you've struggled to maintain. Maybe it's a dream that reality has reshaped, yet you still try to force it. Letting go doesn't mean rejecting what you once cherished. It means choosing to move forward without letting it hold you back. A Zen master once said, "When you let go, both hands are free to receive something new." If your hands are full of old things, how can you welcome the gifts life wants to offer? Likewise, when you release your grip on expectations and results, you create space for the unexpected, the beautiful, and sometimes even better than you imagined. So remember, letting go is an act of wisdom and courage. Wisdom to see that clinging only brings suffering. Courage to open your hand and step into the present with a lighter heart ready to receive. You can still dream, still give, still love deeply, but hold it all as you would hold a bird, not lock it in a cage. And then you will see, letting go is not an ending, but the beginning of a new kind of freedom, an inner freedom that no circumstance can take away. There's a Zen story, I believe. If you hear it and pause for a moment to reflect, you might see yourself in it. Two monks were walking along a muddy path after a heavy rain. The road led them to a river, its current running swift and strong. On the bank stood a woman in a long kimono, her eyes fixed on the rushing water with deep concern. When she saw the monks, she said, "Please, sirs, I can't cross. The water is too deep. My clothes will be ruined." Without a word, the older monk lifted her into his arms, carefully carried her across, and gently set her down on the far bank. She bowed in gratitude, and he simply smiled, then continued walking with his companion. They walked in silence for a long time. Hours later, the younger monk finally burst out, "Brother, why did you do that? We're monks. We're not supposed to have close contact with women, let alone carry one." The elder stopped, looked at him and said, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That answer wasn't just for the young monk. It's for all of us. If we're honest, there have been times we've been just like him, holding on to something we should have set down long ago. Maybe it's a hurtful remark, a mistake we made, or an opportunity we lost. In reality, that moment crossed the river long ago, but in our minds, we still carry it everywhere. The Buddha taught, the past is gone, the future is not yet here, only the present is where life truly exists. Yet so often we let the past occupy our present. We replay old stories as if by doing so we could change them. But the truth is, each time we revisit them with anger or regret, we make ourselves relive that pain all over again. I've met people who even decades later tell a story of resentment with the same heat as if it happened yesterday. Others clutch old regrets so tightly that they can't step into new opportunities, fearing the same failure will repeat. Carrying these things is like walking with a sack of stones on your back. The farther you go, the heavier it feels, and life's road is still long ahead. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting completely. It means no longer letting those memories control your emotions and actions. You can remember, but with peace, not bitterness or self-punishment. Like the elder monk, who didn't erase the memory of helping the woman, but didn't carry it as a burden to argue over or feel guilty about. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "Hatred is never appeased by hatred, but by compassion alone." That compassion begins with yourself. When you forgive and set down the past, you free your own heart, not to give others the advantage, but so you no longer live chained to it. You might be wondering, but how do I put it down? I've tried, and the memory keeps coming back. Letting go is not a single act. It's a process. Each time the memory returns, acknowledge it, take a deep breath, and gently remind yourself, this is over. I don't need to carry it anymore. At first, you may need to remind yourself often, but over time, the load will feel lighter. Remember, if your hands are full of what's old, you can't receive what's new. Like a cluttered room, unless you clear some space, fresh light and air can't flow in. So, the story of the two monks isn't just a charming Zen tale, it's a daily reminder. When you reach the other shore, set it down. Don't let your mind turn you into someone carrying what no longer exists. Life already has enough challenges. There's no need to add weight that isn't yours to bear anymore. And perhaps when you truly learn to set things down, you'll discover your shoulders were always meant to be lighter than you think. There's a practice so simple that at first hearing most people think that can't possibly work. And yet, if you truly try it, it can open a doorway back to a deep, steady peace inside you. It begins with just one breath and a quiet whisper. I allow this moment to be as it is. It sounds gentle, but hidden in those words is a profound shift. The moment you say them in your heart, you're doing something most of us forget to do. You stop fighting with the present. You're no longer arguing with what's happening, no longer demanding that life meet your terms before you allow yourself to feel at ease. In the Buddha's teaching, much of our suffering is rooted in resistance, the mind's refusal to accept what is. When something unpleasant happens, our instinct is to throw up a wall. No, this can't be happening. But that wall drains us. Life still moves according to its causes and conditions, whether we approve or not. Saying, "I allow this moment to be as it is," isn't surrendering to fate. It's stepping out of the battlefield you've built in your own mind. You can still take action, but you no longer sacrifice your peace in the process. I once met a woman going through a storm in her life. An unstable job, family, conflicts, health struggles. Every morning, she woke as if preparing for battle, her mind tense and her chest tight. I suggested one thing before getting out of bed. Place her hand on her heart. Take a deep breath and whisper that sentence. At first she thought, "This is pointless. Nothing's changing." But after a while, she noticed she was less tense, softer in her responses. The problems hadn't vanished, but she was no longer pouring her energy into resisting them. The Buddha said, "When the mind is at peace, the world is at peace." Allowing a moment to be as it is like setting down a muddy glass of water. When you stop stirring, the sediment settles and the water clears. In that stillness, clarity appears. You see more clearly what to do next. Try it now. Pause. Close your eyes. Breathe in deeply. And as you exhale, whisper inwardly, "I allow this moment to be as it is." Maybe you feel your shoulders drop, or a little more space in your chest. That's the weight beginning to lift. Of course, your mind will interrupt. "But this is bad. I have to fix it." You don't need to argue. Just acknowledge. This is here, and this is how it is right now. Starting from acceptance, your actions will be calmer, wiser, and far more effective than if you start from fear or anger. There's a Zen story I love. A master sat by a lake at sunset, savoring the quiet. A student ran up breathless, pouring out the village's troubles. The master sipped his tea and asked, "Do you hear the wind?" The student nodded. "The wind blows, the clouds drift, and life is the same. The more you try to stop the wind, the more you exhaust yourself. Let the wind blow as it will, and you can rest in peace." And maybe you're thinking, "If I accept, won't people take advantage of me?" No, acceptance doesn't mean letting people do as they please. It means not letting your inner world be set on fire by constant resistance. You still set boundaries, still stand up for yourself, but you do it from steadiness, not from reactivity. This practice is so simple, it requires patience. You might repeat it dozens of times a day. Every time your chest tightens in frustration, or your shoulders lock with worry, each repetition unties a small knot in your heart. Over time, you'll see that this sentence is no longer just a technique, it becomes a way of living. You walk into each day without forcing life to fit your script. And strangely, when you stop demanding perfection, life with all its imperfections feels lighter, warmer, more bearable. Because you've learned to sit quietly within yourself and say, "I allow this moment to be as it is." There's a truth. You come to see more clearly the longer you live. None of us can control everything. No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how prepared you think you are, Expected variables will always find a way in, the weather changes, people change their minds, events happen far beyond your reach. And none of them stop to ask for your permission first. What's interesting is that much of our suffering comes from trying to control what was never ours to control in the first place. You want people to behave exactly as you expect. You want life to follow the script you wrote. You want the past to be different, or the future to unfold exactly as you imagine. But the tighter you grip, the more exhausted you become. The Buddha once taught, you cannot control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. The wind here represents everything external, time, weather, other people's actions, the unpredictable changes of life. The sail is your mind and your attitude. If you spend all your energy trying to force the wind to blow your way, you'll live in constant frustration. But if you know how to adjust your sails, you can still move forward no matter how the wind shifts. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha explained that what we truly have mastery over can be summed up in just three things: our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Everything else, the reactions of others, the state of the world, the impermanence of time, is outside our command. Once you understand this, you stop wasting energy on trying to control the uncontrollable and start focusing on mastering yourself. Think about a recent day when someone's words or actions made you angry. Maybe you stayed upset for hours, replaying it in your mind, wishing they hadn't behaved that way. But the truth is, you can't control their behavior. The only thing you can control is your response. You can choose to let it go, or you can choose to let your anger lead you. There's a story I often share. A man once came to the Buddha, hurling insults and speaking harshly. The Buddha remained silent. When the man left, the disciples asked, "Why didn't you respond?" The Buddha smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, the gift still belongs to them." Words of insult are the same. That's a profound truth you can't control. What gifts people bring to you, but you can decide whether to receive them. When you know your limits, life feels lighter. You no longer feel like a failure when things don't go your way. Instead, you focus on what's within your reach. Kindness in your speech, mindfulness in your thoughts, and integrity in your actions. These are the three things that no one, not even hardship, can take from you. I remember an elderly Buddhist practitioner telling me how she used to worry about her children to the point of exhaustion. She wanted to control every decision they made, from their jobs to their marriages to how they raised their own kids. But the more she tried, the more pain she felt when they didn't follow her wishes. After years of practicing mindfulness, she realized she could only be present with love and offer advice, but she could never live their lives for them. When she let go of the need to control her family, relationships grew warmer and closer. Here's a question you can ask yourself whenever you feel tension building. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, stop trying to control it. If the answer is yes, then focus your energy on how you think, speak, and act to create the best outcome. In Buddhist practice, this is the first step toward wisdom, knowing what can be changed and what must be accepted. Acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about not wasting your energy on battles that were lost before they began. When you stop obsessing over controlling everything, you free up the energy to care for yourself and those around you. And eventually, you discover something beautiful. Life doesn't have to be perfect for you to be at peace. Peace comes when you know the boundary between what's mine and what belongs to life. And when that happens, you live with a more open heart and a steadier mind, like a sailor who no longer fears the changing wind because they know they can adjust their sails at any moment. There's a simple image that holds a profound lesson about love and letting go, holding sand in your hand. Picture this: when you cup your hand gently, the grains of sand rest quietly in your palm. But the moment you squeeze too tightly, the sand starts to slip through your fingers, and the tighter you grip, the more you lose. Love in the spirit of Buddhist wisdom works the same way. When you love someone but try to control them to keep them exactly where you want to make them act exactly as you imagine you're clenching your fist, you think that holding on tighter will make love safer, but in truth, it suffocates the very life out of it. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is upadana, attachment, clinging. We don't just cling to possessions or status. We also cling to people, to the idea that this person must belong to me. And when people change, as they inevitably do, we suffer because we've tied our happiness to them never changing. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving. In fact, it's a purer kind of love, one with freedom, without chains. When you love like this, you want the other person's happiness, even if that happiness doesn't include you. You cherish their presence, but you don't try to possess it. I remember an elderly couple who came to the temple. The wife complained that her husband didn't share much, didn't show affection, and she felt he didn't love her like before. She wished he would change, say, and do the things she wanted. But when I asked, if he never changes, could you still love and accept him as he is, she fell silent for a long time. In that moment, she realized she had been holding on too tightly. In love without attachment, you're like a gardener tending to flowers. You water them, nourish them, protect them from pests, but you don't force them to bloom on the day you choose or demand that their petals be your favorite color. You simply create the best conditions and let them bloom in their own time. When they blossom, you rejoice. When they wither, you understand it's part of the cycle, and you let go without bitterness or regret. Many mistake letting go for indifference, but letting go is not cold. It requires a brave and generous heart because you choose to love without guarantees. You don't say, "I'll love you if." You say, "I love you, and I give you the freedom to be yourself." In the Dhammapada, it says, "If you love someone, let them be free. For if they stay, it is out of love, not obligation." Love without clinging gives the other person space to grow, and it allows you to grow too. It's no longer a contract. It's a gift freely given and received. Take a look at your own relationships. Do you sometimes worry too much, control too much, tie your happiness to whether the other person does what you want or stays exactly how they are? If so, maybe it's time to loosen your grip, not to drop them, but to let love breathe, to let it live. Because real love doesn't make you afraid of losing. It makes you grateful for every moment you still have. And when you love without clinging, you may discover something beautiful. Sometimes it's the freedom you give that makes love last longer than any chain ever could. When many people hear the word acceptance, they often mistake it for weakness, for giving up, for surrendering to circumstances. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, acceptance is not defeat. Acceptance is a quiet strength, the strength to look reality straight in the eye without avoiding it, sugarcoating it, or twisting it to fit our preferences. When you accept, you're not saying, "I give up. There's nothing I can do." You're saying to yourself, "This is what's happening. I see it clearly. And from a place of calm, I will decide how to respond." The Buddha taught that suffering doesn't just come from what happens to us, it comes from the way we resist what happens. When you keep insisting, "This shouldn't be happening," or "It should have been different," you add another layer of pain to the original pain. It's like being struck by an arrow. The first arrow is the event itself, and the second arrow is your negative reaction. Often the second arrow hurts even more than the first. I'm reminded of a story about a Zen master and his student. One day, they were caught in a heavy rainstorm. The student quickly began complaining about the weather, about the delay in their journey. The master simply smiled and said, "It's already raining, but you're adding another storm, the one in your heart." Acceptance is noticing that it's raining, putting on a raincoat if you need to, and continuing to walk instead of stopping to argue with the clouds. Acceptance requires an open heart, one that can see reality as it is unclouded by fear or prejudice. With an open heart, you have space to observe, to listen, and to choose your response wisely. But with a closed heart, you only see what you want to see, and you often react impulsively. Some situations cannot be changed instantly: an illness, a loss, a rejection. Fighting them only drains you. But when you accept, you shift your energy from asking why to asking, "What can I do now?" That shift opens new pathways. I once met a woman who lost her job after more than 20 years with the same company. At first, she was in denial and full of anger. But through mindfulness practice, she learned to sit down, take a deep breath, and say, "This is what's happening. It's not what I wanted, but it's here. Now, what will I do from a place of Kipkom?" Only then was she able to see the opportunity to learn new skills, and within months, she began a job that suited her even better. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says the wise do not grieve for what is lost, nor do they fear what has yet to come. They live fully in what is. This is the essence of acceptance, not because we are indifferent, but because only when we are steady in the present can we move forward with clarity. You might ask, but how can I be at peace when I'm facing something so uncomfortable? Peace here doesn't mean you feel good right away. Peace is the inner ground that keeps you from being swept away completely by emotions. You can still feel sadness or disappointment, but those feelings no longer steer your entire life. You can start practicing acceptance in small ways. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of fuming, you can take a deep breath and think, "This is what's happening. I'll use this time to listen to music or simply notice my surroundings." When someone says something unkind to you, instead of reacting immediately, you can pause, acknowledge your feelings, and then choose how you want to respond. Acceptance doesn't make you passive. On the contrary, it helps you act more deliberately because you're no longer wasting energy denying reality. You begin from where you actually are, not from an idealized picture in your mind. And when you do, that every step you take is more grounded. So Next time you face something you didn't want, try telling yourself, "This is what's happening, and I will respond from a place of peace." You may be surprised to find that from that place of peace, the path ahead becomes clearer, your heart feels lighter, and life, even when it doesn't go your way, becomes far more bearable. There's a truth we all know yet so often forget: nothing lasts forever. Everything you see, hear, and feel, whether it's the weather outside or the most private emotions inside your heart, is changing moment by moment. Even the thoughts in your head, which seem so real and clear right now, will fade or transform as time passes. And yet, we often live as if everything will stay exactly the same. We cling to beautiful moments, hoping they'll never end. We cling to sadness, anger, and fear, forgetting that if we simply leave them alone, they too will pass. This forgetfulness of impermanence is why we suffer as much as we do. The Buddha once taught, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When you see this with wisdom, you grow weary of suffering. Impermanence is not a gloomy warning. It's a doorway to freedom. When you truly understand that everything changes, you stop holding on so tightly. You enjoy joy when it arrives, and you let it go gently when it leaves. You understand that anger is just like a dark cloud. It will dissolve in time. I remember a man who once came to the temple in deep crisis. He had lost his job. His health was failing, and his family was in conflict. He told me, "It feels like everything is falling apart, and it's going to be this way forever." I asked, "What was your life like 10 years ago?" He paused, remembering a peaceful, happy period. Then I asked, "And 20 years ago, that brought back memories of another difficult season which had also passed?" Finally, he laughed and said, "I see it now. Nothing ever stays the same. Seeing impermanence is the foundation of letting go. When you know that everything changes, you stop trying to trap what cannot be kept. You stop tying your happiness to the idea that a feeling or a situation must stay forever. You begin to welcome and release things as you would welcome and bid farewell to guests warmly when they arrive, gracefully when they leave. Think about your own emotions. Some mornings you wake up light and joyful, but one unpleasant message or a minor mishap can turn your mood upside down. Then a kind word from someone or a quiet afternoon can lift you again. Feelings are like waves. No two are the same, and none last forever. So why judge your entire life by the shape of the wave you're riding right now? The weather teaches the same lesson. Today, the sun shines. Tomorrow it may rain, and then the sun returns. No one believes a storm will last forever. But when it comes to the storms inside us, we often convince ourselves they'll never end. Impermanence reminds us that even the fiercest storms eventually clear. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha compared all phenomena to dreams, illusions, and bubbles on water. This doesn't mean life isn't meaningful. It's a gentle reminder not to clutch at it as if it were fixed and unchanging. Flexibility in the face of change is what makes life lighter. Letting go, grounded in the truth of impermanence, means allowing everything to follow its natural course. It means not holding on to the past, not forcing the future, and not gripping what you have as if losing it would be the end of everything. When you know that all things change, you begin to value the present moment more because it is unique and will never come again in exactly the same way. And maybe this is what makes life beautiful. Because of impermanence, every smile, every embrace, every sunset becomes precious. Because of impermanence, no sorrow can hold you prisoner forever. Because of impermanence, new doors always have a chance to open. So the next time you find yourself holding on too tightly, whether to joy or to sorrow, try whispering to yourself, "This too will change." And then watch how your heart softens, how it grows lighter, ready to love, to live, and to let go, just as the river keeps flowing, never stopping for even a single moment. Have you ever wondered why life brings you loss, disappointment, or delays you never asked for? Many see them as bad luck, as proof that life is treating them unfairly. But through the eyes of Buddhist wisdom, they take on a different meaning. Every one of them arrives to teach you how to let go. Loss, disappointment, and delay. Each one, if you can truly receive it, becomes a living lesson, a Dharma practice woven into everyday life. They make you realize that you can't hold on to everything and you can't force the world to always move in your favor. And in that moment of helplessness, you see it clearly clinging only makes the pain sharper. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is upadana, the grasping and clinging to what we want, or resisting what we don't want. When a relationship ends, the deepest pain is not just losing that person, but losing the image, the expectations, and the stories we've built around them. When a plan is delayed, the frustration doesn't just come from the wait, but from having staked your happiness on that outcome. I remember a friend telling me that losing her first job was the biggest shock of her life. She felt rejected, worthless, and lost. But months later, she realized that if she hadn't been forced to leave that job, she would never have had the courage to pursue her true passion. That loss, she said, was a gift, but it came wrapped in tears. In Buddhism, every hardship is a teacher. Disappointment teaches humility. Loss teaches impermanence. Delay teaches patience. And together, they all teach compassion, starting with yourself. Being compassionate with yourself in pain means you don't scold yourself for hurting, and you don't demand instant strength. You give yourself time to heal, to breathe, to accept. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care with lightness without chains. You still love, still contribute, still hope, but you don't imprison your heart in fear of loss or in the frustration of unmet desires. You open your hand, not to drop everything, but so life can place something new in it. There's a Zen story about a monk whose student was desperate to reach enlightenment quickly. Every day, the student would ask, "When will I get there one day?" The master handed him a cup of tea, filling it until it overflowed. The startled student exclaimed, "Master, it's spilling." The master replied, "Yes, your mind is the same, overflowing with expectation and urgency. If you don't pour some out, how can there be room for new light to enter?" Life works the same way. Loss, disappointment, delays. Sometimes they are life's way of pouring out what has overfilled you. Only then do you have space to learn, to change, to grow. If you look back, you might see that many of the best things in your life began with some kind of loss. A door closed and another opened, but only after you turned away from the old one. The lesson of letting go is never easy, but it's the road to freedom. So next time you face loss or disappointment, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this teaching me to release?" When you can answer that, you'll discover that within adversity lies an invitation to live lighter, freer, and with deeper compassion for yourself and for others. Because as the Buddha said, when you let go, you have everything. And everything that comes your way, whether joy or sorrow, ultimately points you back to that very lesson. There's a simple practice, so simple you might overlook it, that can completely change the way you see life and meet yourself: mindfulness. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day, sitting quietly, with your breath watching, without judgment, and you'll start to feel your mind grow lighter. The ability to let go of subtle attachments will slowly expand within you. Many people think mindfulness must be something complicated, something you can only master after years of study. But in truth, mindfulness is simply returning to the most basic thing: knowing you're breathing in, knowing you're breathing out. The Buddha once said, "Mindfulness is the only path to liberation." He didn't say it was a long or difficult path, only that it's the only one. Because when you're fully present with this moment, you're no longer chained to the past or pulled away by the future. Imagine this: every morning before your day begins, you set aside 5 minutes. You sit your back straight, but relaxed hands resting lightly on your thighs, eyes gently closed or half open. You take a deep breath in, feeling the air enter your lungs. You breathe out slowly, noticing how your body responds. You don't have to push thoughts away. Just notice them as they arrive. Then let them drift off like clouds across the sky. Here's the miracle practice like this, and over time, you'll notice you can let go of little things more easily. A sharp comment from someone no longer follows you all day. A delay at work doesn't frustrate you the way it used to. Through mindfulness, you learn to observe without clinging, and that's the art of letting go at its most subtle. I remember a Buddhist friend telling me that before he practiced mindfulness, he had a short fuse. If someone went against his wishes, he reacted instantly. But after a few months of spending 10 minutes a day with his breath, he discovered a pause before reacting. He could actually feel anger beginning to form, and instead of firing back with harsh words, he simply breathed until it passed. "It's not that I never get angry anymore," he said, "but I'm no longer a slave to my anger." In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha's teaching on mindfulness of breathing, he says, "When breathing in long, know you are breathing in long. When breathing out long, know you are breathing out long. When breathing in short, know you are breathing in short." That's it. No need to add or subtract. No need to force yourself to meet some ideal standard. What matters isn't how beautiful your breath is. It's whether your mind is truly here with it. You can practice mindfulness anywhere, not just sitting still. When drinking tea, truly drink. Notice its aroma, taste, and warmth. When washing dishes, truly feel the water. Hear the clink of the plates. When walking, notice your feet touching the ground, your breath moving in rhythm with your steps. Every moment of presence is a chance to train your mind, and with each one, your ability to let go of subtle attachments grows stronger. The key is not to wait until your mind is in chaos to use mindfulness as an emergency fix. Practice even when life is calm. It's like building muscle. You don't wait until you need to lift something heavy to start training. You train daily, so you're ready when the time comes. The mind is the same. It needs steady training so that when life storms arrive, you're not swept away. And you'll see that in just 5 to 10 minutes a day, you're not only learning to let go of obvious things like anger or irritation, but also the subtler ones, the urge to control others, the need for perfect outcomes, even the repetitive stories you keep telling yourself. Mindfulness doesn't promise to erase all of life's challenges. What it gives you is space to choose whether to react or stay silent, to hold on or to release, to let your mind feel heavy or light. And it's those choices that shape the quality of your life. So, if today you feel pulled in too many directions, try stopping. Sit down. Breathe. That's all. Because sometimes one full conscious breath can free you from the weight of an entire exhausting day. And if you do it every day, you'll find that letting go stops being a distant idea. It becomes a natural reflex, like your breath, your steps, and life itself. There are moments when you find yourself reacting so strongly, it feels like the whole world is falling apart over something small. A careless comment, an unanswered text, a last-minute change of plans. Your mind instantly floods with questions, judgments, and assumptions. And before you know it, you've been swept into the whirlpool of emotion. But if in that very moment you pause and ask yourself, will this still matter 5 years from now? You might be surprised at the power of that question. It's like finding a hidden exit that leads you out of the cramped room of impulsive reaction into a wider, calmer space where you can breathe and see more clearly. The Buddha taught that most of our suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the way we cling to them. This question shifts your view from magnifying a small problem into everything, to seeing it as just one grain of sand in the vast desert of life. A grain of sand can irritate if it gets in your eye, but if you blink and let it fall, the pain is gone. I once knew a young layman, smart, capable, but constantly stressed at work. A delayed project or a co-worker's disagreement would cost him nights of sleep. One day I asked him, "Do you think this will still keep you up at night in 5 years?" And he paused, smiled, and said, "Probably not, Bhante." That simple realization loosened the tight grip he had on the situation. This question isn't about dismissing everything or becoming careless. It's about sorting what truly deserves your mental energy from what's just a passing wave. If it won't matter in 5 years, maybe it's not worth sacrificing your peace over today. In Buddhist practice, this is a kind of perspective wisdom, seeing things in the larger truth of impermanence. Everything changes, and many things we see as monumental today become faint ripples in memory years later. You can try it right now. Recall something that upset you 5 years ago, something that once consumed your thoughts, and maybe even your health. How does it feel now? Has it faded? Maybe even made you smile at how much you once worried. If that's true for the past, it's likely true for today as well. I remember an elder woman in a Dharma talk saying, "Looking back now, the things that once made me cry when I was young, I can't even recall clearly. And the things I once ignored turned out to be the most precious." The room went silent because everyone recognized a piece of themselves in her words. When you ask, will this still matter in 5 years, you give your mind a pause, a chance to step out of habitual reaction and choose from a place of clarity. This question is like a compass reminding you that not every path is worth walking and not every burden is worth carrying. Of course, some answers will be, yes, 5 years from now, it will still matter. Those are usually tied to your deepest values, important relationships, or life-shaping choices. And when you see that you can invest your time, energy, and care with greater purpose. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, "The wise know what is worth doing and let go of what is not." This question is one way to practice that wisdom. It won't erase all your problems, but it will filter out what drains you without meaning. So, next time your heart races with anger or disappointment, pause for a breath and ask, will this still matter 5 years from now? If the answer is no, let it drift away like a dry leaf on the wind. If the answer is yes, respond with awareness, knowing you are standing for what truly matters. And you may find that as you live by this simple question, life feels lighter, your mind feels more spacious, and what truly belongs, love, gratitude, and peace, will have all the room they need to stay. It's interesting how most of the time our minds are preoccupied with things far beyond our control. We worry about what others think of us, the outcome of our efforts, or the sudden twists life might take. But the more we cling to these things, the more unsettled we feel. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is upadana attachment. We don't just cling to what we like, we also cling to the idea that life must go our way. When it doesn't, we suffer. One way to break this cycle is to shift our focus from what we can't control to what we can, and to be grateful for those things, our kindness, our effort, and our sincerity. Kindness is always yours to give, no matter the situation. No one can stop you from smiling, listening, or offering a helping hand. Effort is the same. You may not control the outcome, but you can choose to give your very best. And sincerity, living true to your heart without pretending for acceptance, is something only you can decide. I once met a man who was deeply unhappy at work. He complained that his boss never valued him. His co-workers were ungrateful, and all his efforts felt wasted. When I asked, "What in this job can you control?" he paused before answering. "Probably the way I work and how I treat people." From that moment, he began to shift. Instead of growing bitter, he focused on working with dedication and keeping a positive attitude. Months later, that change opened a new opportunity for him, not because of luck, but because he had planted the right seeds. The Buddha once said, "Sow wholesome seeds, and the fruit will be wholesome." There's no need to rush. The fruit comes when conditions are right. When you're grateful for what you can master, you stop demanding instant results. You understand your role is to plant and tend while letting nature decide when to bloom. Each morning, you might ask yourself, what will I plant in the world today? It could be as simple as a sincere compliment, a day's worth of wholehearted work, or a meal cooked with love. When you keep your heart in what you can do, you stop being swept away by what's beyond your reach. Whether it's who will notice, how they'll respond, or whether the outcome matches your hopes. There's a little story I love. A monk was once asked, "Master, how can I be happy when the world feels so unstable?" He smiled and said, "You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails." Gratitude for what you can control is exactly that, adjusting your sails. You can't calm the seas, but you can still steer in the right direction. And here's the subtle art of letting go, releasing the need to control everything, to depend on others' reactions, or to demand that results turn out a certain way. Instead, you hold on to what truly belongs to you, your kindness, your effort, your sincerity, and let the rest unfold naturally. Next time stress rises, try asking, in this situation, what is within my control? Be grateful that at the very least, you still have the power to choose how you think, speak, and act. That alone can pull you one step away from the grip of attachment and one step closer to peace. Life with all its ups and downs will never be entirely easy. But when you cherish what you can control and loosen your grip on what's beyond you, your heart grows lighter. Peace isn't when everything is perfect. It's when you're strong enough to smile in the midst of imperfection. That is the path the Buddha taught, simple yet profound, leading you back to freedom within. If today's sharing touched you, help this message reach others. Subscribe to Buddhism Seeds, hit like, share this video with someone you care about, and leave a comment below on what resonated most with you. Your story might just become the seed of peace for someone who needs it.